I'm totally turning this into a draft because Ashley, I'm going to ask you. You mentioned Smith number one. You mentioned Tomlinson would have been your other choice. So who would you have taken? Let's say this was a draft and we had Smith and Tomlinson go 1, 2. Who would you have taken third?
Oh, let's just do a draft for
All right,
Pete's
let's
sake.
just do it.
Just do a draft. We should just do a draft. So I have the third pick, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I took. I'm going to say that I took Dalvin Tomlinson number 2.
That's fine. That's fine. So I get the third pick. You know what? I know we were just talking about Obo, but I'm actually going to go with Juan Thornhill here. Like, they needed to get a new starting free safety. Like, it was obviously clear JJ3 wasn't going to be returning here. And I just like the energy he brings from when we've gotten to talk to him. Of course, we'll get to spend more time with those veteran guys coming up in OTAs and mandatory minicamp and things like that. But it was obviously just like a position of need for me. And I still like the Obo signing, but looking at, hey, we were out of starting free safety. You needed to get somebody. And it's somebody who's produced and has a championship pedigree who I think is going to be good for the locker room and who guys will listen to. And I think that's really key to kind of get another kind of leadership voice in there on top of everything he can do on the field and being a starter caliber player.
Okay, so Mary Kay, there's a chance I would have taken Juan Thornhill number 2, but so, we had to kind of game the system a little bit here. I do think this is a really important move because, with John Johnson, clearly he just never found his groove here. And he never quite found a role that suited him. Never quite seemed like he was super happy all the time. Look, good to us, good talker. We obviously loved covering him and was a good soldier for the most part, but just wasn't a fit. And so now you bring in Jim Schwartz and you've got to think Jim Schwartz had a pretty big say in who they were going to bring in to replace John Johnson III and enter Juan Thornhill, still young, his second contract now, exactly the type of free agent Andrew Berry loves to sign. There's a chance that this could be, I don't think anything's going to be more important than Smith if he plays like he's capable, but there's a chance that this could be maybe their second most important signing on this defense.
It could be. I mean, so far we all like what we see. He's really taken on a very vocal leadership role already on social media. You can see that he's trying to get people really fired up about the Cleveland Browns. He's welcoming every new guy that has come in after him. He's just one of those run through a wall, super positive kind of players. And I think the Browns needed that kind of energy. I really do. I think defense is an attitude in so many cases. Defense is a mentality, and the Browns needed a new one. They really did. They were a splintered and in some ways fractured defense last year. They were yelling at each other at times. We know that there were issues between Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, mostly coming from the Jadeveon Clowney side. It just wasn't a cohesive unit. So here you have Juan Thornhill coming in. He knows what it takes. He knows what it takes to get to not just one Super Bowl or 2 Super Bowls, but 3 Super Bowls. And it takes teamwork. It takes brotherhood. It takes camaraderie. It takes chemistry. And he's all about that. So, and the other thing about him that I think is really, really good is that he can get his hands on some footballs. And they really, really need that. They had, I think, 11 interceptions or something, very, very, very low last year. They were down in the 20s in terms of takeaways and interceptions and all those kinds of things. And, he can get his hands on some footballs. And I think he'll probably even get his hands on a few more this year because of how hard they are going to attack up front. I mean, this is just going to be a go gangbusters, defensive line. That's going to help the guys in the back end. Juan Thornhill is a great pickup.
Yeah, Ashley, just kind of continuing with Juan. We kind of know that this defense is going to be attack, and then the secondary is going to clean things up. And we had a chance to talk to Cameron Mitchell, who talked a little bit about that during rookie minicamp. Like, these secondary guys are going to have tons of opportunities, and Juan Thornhill is going to be a prime beneficiary of that.
Yeah, and I even think like the quote from Cameron that stuck with me from the weekend was, you ask any defensive back if they'd rather cover for 4 seconds or 2 seconds, everyone's going to say 2 seconds, right? And I think like ideally we know how Jim Schwartz thinks about this stuff, right? That given the way passing offenses are, given the way the game is called now with DPI calls, things like that, he really believes, he said this at his first press conference, that you have to get that pressure from up front. That is how you have to stop the passing offenses. And again, when it's basically what Cameron Mitchell was talking about. If you are getting to those guys sooner, you're making them panic. They're not being able to hold on to the ball as long. And I think that can lead to more takeaways. And we know that that's something the Browns have struggled with the last couple years, especially. They just weren't coming in bunches, which I think was a JJ3ism actually about them coming in bunches. And I just think that overall this system is more designed, even though like on the surface level, you talk about the changes for the front of the defense, it is potentially going to have that ripple effect to positively impact the DBs and the kind of takeaways they're able to get to.
Well, since we're just doing this on the fly,